Hello friends. Hope you all are doing well. Today video is about the last Sultan of Ottoman Empire Mehmed VI Vahiduddin. So let's start the video without wasting any time. On the 17th of November, 1922, Mehmed VI Vahiduddin, the final Sultan of the Ottoman Empire, made a hasty escape from Istanbul in the early hours after receiving alarming news about threats to his safety, never to return. He was discreetly transported in ambulances with British guards, accompanied by his 10-year-old son, Prince Mehmed Ertuğrul, and was escorted to the battleship HMS Malaya by General Charles Harrington, the commander of the Allied forces. It wasn't until hours later that officials from the Ottoman palace confirmed the Sultan's departure. In the weeks that followed, Vahiduddin found himself in a contemplative state. He arrived in Malta on the 9th of December and eventually selected the Italian Riviera as his place of exile. In the charming resort town of San Remo, the new Italian leader, Benito Mussolini, extended warm wishes to the majestic Ottoman emperor for a pleasant stay in Italy. Over the next 4 years, Vahiduddin carried a revolver with him, wary of the potential threat from his numerous guests and admirers. When he passed away in 1926 due to a blocked artery, the former emperor was left without money and heavily in debt. The Italian authorities held on to his coffin until his daughter, Sabiha Sultan, managed to gather enough funds for his burial in a cemetery in Damascus. 100 years later, the escape and death of Vahiduddin might seem to signify a major turning point in Turkish history. Yet at the time, they were largely met with apathy. There was no unified effort to maintain the Sultan's position, although a few isolated attempts were made. In India, the leaders of the Khilafat movement, who could have been expected to support the Islamic Caliph, instead rallied behind Vahiduddin's formidable opponent, Mustafa Kemal Attaturk, and the national forces he commanded. For anti-colonial Muslims in North Africa, Attaturk emerged as a symbol, overshadowing Vahiduddin. Algerians in Paris chose to decorate their walls with Ataturk's images rather than those of the last Sultan. The sentiments of ordinary Turkish citizens regarding the Sultan's departure remain uncertain, but public displays of mourning were uncommon. Most newspapers echoed Ataturk's denunciation of him. The same year Vahiduddin passed away, the Turkish National Assembly officially abolished the caliphate, a position that had been integral to the Ottoman system since the 16th century. All members of the Ottoman royal family were prohibited from returning to their homeland. The Times of London marked the end of Old Turkey with a sense of triumph, noting the demise of its Byzantine bureaucracy. The new Turkey was equally celebratory. Gentlemen, if we seek the roots of this sorrowful state, this misery that plagues the nation, we find it directly in the notion of the Ottoman state, declared Ataturk, accusing Vahiduddin of treason and asserting that the Sultan's endorsement of the Treaty of Sevres in 1920 revealed an autocratic regime steeped in ignorance and debauchery. İsmet İnönü, Ataturk's close associate, pledged that the Sultanate would never be reinstated. If any caliph ever dares to meddle in the fate of this country, we will not hesitate to cut off his head. In the autumn of 1922, the Turkish National Assembly stripped the Ottoman royal family of its powers and declared that the Ottoman Empire, with its autocratic system, has altogether ceased to exist. In the century that followed, the prominence of the Ottoman Sultanate surged dramatically in Republican Turkey. The 1950s saw the rise of neo-Ottomanism, fueled by revisionist narratives that mourned the fall of the Ottoman Empire. A grand state ceremony in 1953 celebrated the 500th anniversary of Sultan Mehmed II's conquest of Istanbul. By 1974, male members of the Ottoman royal family were allowed to return to Turkey, following the earlier amnesty granted to female members 22 years prior. Ankara took further steps by promising to restore their Turkish citizenship. The heirs to the throne were welcomed back as esteemed guests and received media attention. Today, the Turkish interest in the Ottomans has blossomed into a worldwide trend, largely through period dramas that explore the intrigues of the early Ottoman courts. The legacy of the Ottoman sultans is not just a figment of popular culture. Actual royals still exist, when Dundar Abdülkerim Osmanoglu, the last heir to the Ottoman throne, passed away at 90 in January 2021. The news was shared on Twitter. Father of our family and the Ottoman dynasty, our uncle Prince Dundar Abdülkerim Osmanoglu passed away in Syria's Damascus, tweeted Orhan Osmanoglu, another member of the royal family. The new head of the Osmanoglu family, Harun, is the late Dundar Abdülkerim's brother, who is now 88 years old. One of the most notable mourners of Vahiduddin was the Islamist poet Necip Fazıl Kısakürek, 1904 to 1983, who was just 20 years old when the Sultanate came to an end. He was a man who was born into the Ottoman Empire and lived long enough for Turkey's current president, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, to attend his funeral. Kısakürek believed that Vahiduddin was the key figure who initiated and staunchly defended the nationalist movement that resisted the Allied forces. He held a strong disdain for Ataturk's vision of modernization and drew inspiration from Vahiduddin's supporters during the Ottoman period, who criticized the Young Turks, those who overthrew Sultan Abdülhamid II and established a constitutional government, labeling them as Jews and Freemasons with a grudge against Islam and its caliph. While it might not typically matter whether Kısakürek, who translated the anti-Semitic work The Protocols of Elders of Zion, viewed the last Ottoman Sultan as a patriot, it holds significance in Erdogan's new Turkey. Kısakürek's impact on the Turkish president has been substantial. Erdogan referred to him as the Sultan of Poets and attended his funeral in 1983 alongside his Islamist peers, who regarded Kısakürek as a symbol of their beliefs. Since becoming Turkey's prime minister in 2003, Erdogan has positioned Kısakürek as a pivotal figure in Turkish culture, even establishing a government-funded literary award in his honor. Recently, the Atatürk Cultural Center, after years of construction, showcased a Kısakürek play last fall, following a summer exhibition dedicated to him. The enduring popularity of this genre can be attributed to the ongoing tension between Vahiduddin and Ataturk, which remains unresolved. Their century-old conflict continues to shape Turkish politics in both significant and subtle ways. Just last September, after Izmir's Mayor Tunç Soyer labeled Vahiduddin a traitor in a speech, prosecutors initiated an investigation into the opposition politician. A pro-government newspaper highlighted the shift since 1922 by stating, "Anyone who calls Vahiduddin a traitor is a traitor." On the centenary of Vahiduddin's exile, historian Murat Bardakçı uncovered a document from the state archives of the Presidency of Turkey, revealing encrypted correspondence from Ataturk to military commander Rafet Bil, instructing the public to lynch the Sultan. This document dates back to the first week of November 1922, and received extensive coverage from Turkish news outlets. Additionally, historian Cengiz Ozakinci referenced parliamentary records from the 30th of October, 1922, where Ataturk and his associates discussed hearing that Vahiduddin would soon resign and decided to put the matter of how to handle him to a vote, ultimately determining that Vahiduddin should be addressed through legal means. The ongoing conflict between Ataturk and Vahiduddin, which still resonates in 2023, revolves around two opposing ideologies regarding the management of a crumbling empire, as well as two political legacies dedicated to defeating their rivals. Supporters of Vahiduddin view the Sultanate as a respected and established system that allowed Turks some autonomy in governing their nation, with hopes of one day restoring its former greatness. Conversely, Ataturk's followers believe it is essential to discard the past to create a modern state. 100 years later, the debate over how best to preserve a former empire and who should lead it remains unresolved. Central to this dilemma is the critical question of Turkey's identity and its potential future. Ataturk perceived autocracy as inherent in the Sultan's vision for Turkey, while Vahiduddin and his backers argued similarly about the authoritarian Young Turks, whose rule from 1913 to 1918 was notably more oppressive than that of the Sultan. Thus, the unresolved issue is not whether the Sultanate was autocratic, but which form of autocracy people were willing to accept: the single-party rule of the Young Turks and their Republican supporters, or the paranoid governance of sultans who relied on espionage and censorship. This dilemma persists, possibly because we tend to view it as a binary choice. By taking a step back, both citizens and historians can place the conflict in its historical context for a deeper understanding. As Gingerus illustrates in the last days of the Ottoman Empire, beyond a mere clash of republican and monarchical ideals, the struggle was fundamentally about power and its rightful holders. Engaging in this historical conflict by taking sides and vilifying the opposition a century later risks perpetuating a harmful cycle. The predecessor of the last Sultan, Mehmed V, went through a period that was just as tumultuous as that of Vahiduddin. By the time his rule ended, 1909 to 1918, Istanbul was teetering on the edge of disorder, grappling with severe shortages of essential food items, rationed fuel, and frequent power outages. One minister vividly described the imperial city as completely sold, an open sewer flowing from every side. Even the Sultan's own staff struggled to secure basic supplies like rice. Food intended for Turkish soldiers on the front lines during the Great War was commandeered for the Sultan's use. Gingerus notes that the slow decline of his health was, in many ways, a reflection of his household's own dwindling fortunes. From the very start of his reign, Vahiduddin was confronted with an unpredictable future. On the 30th of October, 1918, nearly 6 months after taking the throne, the Ottoman Empire admitted defeat in the Great War. Just a week later, the current government was dissolved, the Grand Vizier stepped down, and the empire's sole political party, the Committee of Union and Progress, was disbanded. That's it for today, guys. Hope you all like the video. See you all in the next video. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.